that govern that who are not able to do that. Maybe you can just take us through the law so that anybody who might be there and possibly is inventing or thinking of inventing or innovating, because that's the right word, they've already been invented.
Yes.
What are some of those laws and what are the guidelines?
Actually, right now we're at a very nice place in Kenya because the Kenya Civil Aviation Authority has come up with very good guidelines and they are in the process of making it into law. So for me to become an operator, I must be registered with the Civil Aviation Authority. I must also get an operator's license. So that's the law as it is right now for the remotely piloted aircraft. Right now, there's a no-fly, so don't fly. If you want to fly, just do flight simulations. I do a lot of flight simulations, and with your indulgence, I can show you something in there that is used for flight.
Why not?
So now I call it the lunchbox because it is indeed a lunchbox.
And director, if we can get this literally,
this
is a lunchbox which he probably. Are you married?
I am married.
Okay, this is probably a lunchbox that your wife is maybe seeing for the first time. She's been wondering what happened to this lunchbox, but lo and behold, I think some boy habits don't quite die. You know, when you take something from the house and literally just make a contraption out of it. So, yeah, tell me about the lunchbox.
So, this lunchbox, believe it or not, is, think of it like a fancy game, like you'd play on your computer. So, but it's made locally. The cost to me for making this is less than 1,000 shillings.
The whole thing?
The whole thing, and it works. I fly a very nice, realistic flight simulation that is called Flight Gear.
I'm afraid to press anything in case this things take off.
You could even step on it. It even has toggle switches which actuate various control surfaces
on the aircraft. The boy is just taking over, so I wanted to just play with the buttons. Yeah, go ahead.
Never let the boy die. That's always my insistence. So the point of this was that in Kenya we feel that the law says don't fly. I fly all the time, but on the flight simulator. I fly daily on the flight simulator because as I wait for the laws to be made properly, I can't just sit around and not continue to do my innovations.
Your passion.
And you mentioned you had a son and a daughter.
I have two sons.
That's very nice. So the point of making this was to actually give your children a chance to fly. The idea was to start a club, and we do have a club, and it's meant to show the correlation between what they learn, like the physics they do in high school, and what goes on in the real world. Because sometimes there's detachment from what goes on in real world and what actually is done in schools, in academia. So you're trying to tell them the physics you do in Form 3, you learn about electronics, you learn about Bernoulli's principle, etc. The maths you do even in primary schools,
you
can apply. And I've had some test cases where I've had some primary school kids and secondary school kids. I have close to 1,000 kids now.
Wow.
Who come and they just learn and see how, and they fly on the flight simulator and they enjoy it. And we have actually monitored their grades. We are proud to say they are going hard.
Now with this flight simulator, aka lunchbox, does it actually fly them when you're simulating? Because the flight simulator, I know in terms of games, is something that you wear, you know, those eye gear, and you literally don't fly, but you feel like you are. How does this work?
So you plug this to your computer. If you don't have a computer, I have a computer that I could give to you that is less than 3,000 shillings.
A computer?
And you connect it to your monitor and you're able to simulate the flight in its entirety, and it is realistic.
Wait, you say the computer is less than 3,000?
Absolutely. We have
a computer that works?
A fully fledged computer that runs an operating system that is less than 3,000 shillings. And you connect this and you're able to fly the flight simulation. Where this is headed is we're going to have an actual physical flight simulator that you get into, which when you tilt something and you're moving up, the whole of you plus you're moved up and you're able to enjoy that experience more. I think, in my opinion, that is more useful than even this. Not to belittle this, because this can be used for wildlife, etc., etc. But again, we have to cater for the masses, and we are always talking about Vision 2030. We have to spur on people's innovation. We have to spur on their engineering and creativity. And how do we do that? We start with lunch boxes. They look like something that you wouldn't want to pick up ordinarily, but I tell you, building this with your daughter, with your son, with my daughter, I have a daughter, a 6-year-old, it was a lot of fun just putting it together. And how else do you spend your time? We can't just sit down and watch TV. You can't just sit down and play games. Let's do constructive things. Even as we play games, as we do the rest of the things, let them be constructive.
Okay.
Yes.
So when you started doing these drones, what was your intention?
At the time, it was back in 2010, there was a crisis on wildlife. Elephants were dying by the day, and I made a very crude paper-based aircraft. I didn't have any resources at the time. And that paper-based aircraft, we flew it in all the national parks under the tutelage of Julius Kimgetich at the time he was director KWS. And we were trying to prove that we can make a local homegrown solution to do wildlife conservation. And I'm proud to say that we did it. We did it, and we got recognition by the government, by the national government, through the National Commission for Science and Technology, NACOSTI. It's a government body that's mandated to advise government on all matters of science and technology. And they give us a small grant to explore the state of the art, as it were. And we've grown that to where we want to establish this as a business. We believe we have a niche market. We believe we can do this for the whole of Africa. Forget even Kenya for a moment, because right now we're talking about the Pan-African movement. So Kenya has become a larger key player within the region even than we thought initially. And so we would like to have these things built in Kenya. And we're glad that the law is catching up. That's why I'm proud to say the Civil Aviation Authority is now coming up with a very nice legal framework that's going to let us do this legally and safely and gain value out of this.
Okay, yes. Maybe let's look at the legal restrictions. What currently is the position, and why can't you fly these contraptions?
So I'll throw the question back to you and ask you, can you drive without a car, without a license?
No, you cannot.
It's the same thing. I can't fly without a license. Actually, when you put it that way plainly, it makes a lot of sense. A lot of people, of course, come out and strongly condemn the government, the government is doing. But what they're trying to do is safeguard you. This could cause harm. It could result to death. They are spinning propellers. They could spin and cut off your fingers. They could hurt somebody. Who will be liable? So, of course, there'll be situations where you start saying, oh, the government has done. So right now the government is doing. They're proactively saying, don't do this without the legal framework. Don't do this if you don't know how to do it. And I think that is a right step for them to do.
Does that affect, because apart from now these that you have invented, we know that there are those drones that are actually sold in stores, especially abroad, which would be used for filming. Small drones that you can use for photography and videography.
Yes.
Are those within that same law?
They are within the same law. The law right now is anything that will fly requires licensing. I don't want to preempt and say, because there are also other issues like radio control for hobby purposes. The government recognizes, of course, you have the right to fly a small park fly. We call them park flyers within the park or within a small restricted allowed place. So how the framework that the government is coming up with is that you should come to a club like the club we're starting, and then you go and fly within a certain field.
So it's
within a restricted area. So now you're doing it safely and responsibly, and you can't hurt people.
Okay.
Or damage property. Yes.
All right, let's just go through the actual making of these drones.
Yes.
And maybe you'll explain to us what the white thing is as well.
Yes.
But what does it entail for you to actually come up with this contraption?
I'll say something that will be a shocker, but it entails nothing.
No, I think it entails a lot. Because if you gave me this right now,
yes.
Before you put it together,
yes.
the best place I would put it is in a bin.
Absolutely. And actually, I always like to say, but sometimes it looks a bit scary, like something you might not want to touch because it looks like something you could discard. But all you have to have is passion, and lastly, passion. Those are the only criteria you need to have. You don't have to have any educational background. In fact, when we're doing this, I always say that we are open to ages 3 years old to 79. 80-year-olds, I'm sorry, we don't currently have space for 80-year-olds, but and you get my point, anybody can do this.
Right.
Like this is cardboard, you can clearly see. Somebody will probably see that I inverted the color, the flag colors. On the front side, there's Kenyan flag colors. It's on this side, but on the front.
Okay.
It was a mistake, and some primary school kid pointed out and told me, hey, why is the Kenyan flag inverted? It was a mistake, but we usually make them using locally available materials. All you have to do is have a passion for it. Of course, it helps to do the sciences, and it helps to do quite a lot of math. Math is fun, contrary to popular belief. It's just that the mode of application, when you're learning math, nobody tells you what it's for. If somebody tells you, if you do math, by the way, it's possible for you to make something of this nature, they do it. And the case study I've had with the 1,000 kids I've mentioned to you is testament, because their grades are improving. They enjoy themselves thoroughly. Because if you have fun in what you do, like I admire your job, you have a very good job. I'm sure you even look very healthy. So now it's the same thing with the kids. If they are healthy, they are happy, they are playing with stuff as they do their math. why would they not innovate?
It's practical application of theories that we previously didn't know how to apply.
And who is an engineer? Because people usually think an engineer is somebody who has gone through a 5-year degree program. Not necessarily. Engineering is application of science. Not just science, application of anything, applied science, even social engineering. Think when you apply yourself within a certain domain and scope, you're an engineer. So I always encourage even those small kids in the high school, in primary, they are engineers because it starts with you. If you believe you're something, you become whatever it is you want to be. The power is in your hand. It's not somebody else who's going to.
The proverb says, as a man thinketh, so is he. Now, one might be wondering, how did you manage to get government funding? Because normally that's a very tricky and difficult part in many people's minds as to when you have such an innovative idea.
That's interesting because they actually advertise on the dailies. They do. They do. The National Commission usually from time to time has called for proposals for innovations. And they've even funded people who are as young as in high school. And they call and say, we have the, let's say the fifth, for example, the fifth innovators grant. And they also even have masters and they have PhD grants. And all you have to do is apply. But most people, when we see the paper, are like, oh no, they're not, they're just kidding around. They're not. Just try and reach out. Actually, somebody proposed that I go there and try because they saw a call, and I heeded the call, and lo and behold, I was able to do it. You asked me what this was. This is what communicates with the aircraft.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's a communication base.
It's a device to help send signals around and make the system fly around properly.
Did you actually study for, physics and some technology, electronic engineering of some sort, for you to put this together? Obviously, there's a lot of electronics coming into play.
Absolutely. My background is in computer science. I'm a software engineer by profession, but I've now since switched to aeronautical engineering at a higher level. But my background, regardless of my background, you do have to have a passion for electronics, and most kids do have that passion. Notice my insistence on the lack of very high credentials for you to do this. You can do this as a hobby, on a hobby level, at whatever stage you are in your life, in your academic life, because my insistence is always, if you spar on the idea of somebody wanting to tinker with this, because most kids these days are bored. And the reason kids are bored is because they've seen the universe, as it were, through the mobile phone or through some other, or through the TV, but they're not touching things with their hands. When I was growing up, there was no TV. There was TV, but there was only one TV station, and it used to start at 4
or 5.
And there used to be some funny circle thing I never used to understand. But you see, that left us with a lot of time for us to engage and explore, climb trees, get hurt, fall down, but learn. That's how you learn. These days, the idea that I can just sit behind a TV and learn, I'm sorry to say, no, that doesn't work. You have to explore, and that's why we say engineering is applied science. My watching or reading about something is not application. So I cannot say I'm an engineer because I've gone through a 5-year degree program, but I've never applied. That's why you see that they go to industrial placements, they have to apply what they have learned.
Okay. Yes. Well, Moses, this is definitely very inspiring, and I guess the moral of the story here is follow your dream and your passion. You don't have to be overqualified to come up with something like this. And they say that when a carpenter walks into a forest, when the rest of you are seeing trees, he is probably seeing a very nice piece of furniture. Well, with Moses, when he walks into a supermarket, he is not just seeing a plastic lunchbox, which you wonder whether to put cereals or fruits in this kind of a plastic thing, but he is actually seeing a drone in the making. Thank you very much, Moses Gitonga, for letting us into your world of drones, and we wish you all the best. Last question: where do you see yourself in 5 years?
The head of a Pan-African research center. That's the dream.
That's where you're headed.
That's the dream.
Well, we wish you all the best, and to use the words of Lupita Nyong'o, your dreams are valid.
Thank you.
That's where we're going to wind up Morning Express this morning, and thank you for staying with us right here. But do stay with us. For those of us who are going to be on KTN News, now I'm sure by now you probably know we have two distinct channels. There is KTN News, which is purely a news channel, and we also have KTN Home. So at this point, KTN News, we're going to have 9 o'clock news bulletin, which is known as News Track, and on KTN Home for Morning Express, this is where we wind up. Have yourselves a wonderful and a great day. God bless.